The story of Lucifer and Azazel, two fallen angels cast out of heaven for rebelling against God. There's Lucifer, known as the Prince of Hell, who challenged God, and Azazel, a fallen angel who corrupted humanity by sharing forbidden knowledge. Now, they are fighting each other for the throne of hell. So, who do you think will rule hell? Let's start from the very beginning. Lucifer was once the most beautiful and powerful of all the angels. He was God's right-hand angel, living in heaven with divine grace and favor. But that wasn't enough for him. Lucifer wanted more. He wanted to be equal to God, if not greater. His pride and ambition grew, and eventually, it led to a rebellion. Lucifer wanted to be worshipped, to sit on the throne of heaven, and he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. This rebellion didn't go unnoticed, and heaven quickly saw the rise of a power struggle that would change the fate of the universe. Lucifer's pride became his downfall. Leading a third of the angels, he waged a war against God and his heavenly army. They fought fiercely, but in the end, Lucifer's forces were defeated. With great force, Lucifer and his followers were cast out of heaven, their wings torn from them and sent to the abyss, hell. But it wasn't just the loss of power that devastated Lucifer, it was the rejection. Once the most loved and trusted angel, Lucifer now found himself in the depths of despair, consumed by hatred and envy. From that moment on, he became the Prince of Hell, the ruler of the damned, and the ultimate enemy of God. While Lucifer's rebellion was rooted in pride, Azazel's fall came from a very different place. Azazel was a fallen angel who wasn't in part of Lucifer's original rebellion. Instead, he fell from grace in a more subtle way. Azazel was one of the Watchers, the angels tasked with observing humanity, but instead of guiding and protecting mankind, Azazel chose to corrupt them. Azazel's sin was one of temptation. He shared forbidden knowledge with humans. He taught them how to craft weapons of war, how to create magic, and, most dangerously, how to use the power of the stars. It was knowledge meant only for the divine, and by giving it to humanity, Azazel opened the door to sin, violence, and darkness. This act of corruption was so severe that it led to God's judgment. Azazel was cast down, just like Lucifer, but his punishment wasn't just about his fall. He became the scapegoat for all humanity's suffering and sin, the embodiment of the destructive knowledge he gave to the world. Now, Lucifer and Azazel were both rulers in hell, but they were far from allies. Their personalities clashed, and their ambitions only fueled their rivalry. Lucifer, consumed by pride and a need to overthrow God, sought total dominance. He wanted not just to rule hell, but to challenge God once again and reclaim his former glory. Azazel, on the other hand, was content with his power over mankind's dark secrets. But there was always that lingering hunger for more influence, more control, and more power. As centuries passed, both Lucifer and Azazel began to realize that in hell there could only be one ruler. Their ambitions for power continued to grow, and they knew that the throne of hell was the ultimate prize, but neither one of them was willing to submit to the other. This conflict became inevitable, the fight for the throne of hell. Lucifer's path to power was fueled by his unrelenting pride. From the moment he was cast into hell, his arrogance only grew. Lucifer had one thing in mind: revenge. He didn't want to just rule over the damned. He wanted to overthrow God and reclaim his position in heaven. To achieve this, Lucifer started by solidifying his position as the Prince of Hell. But unlike Azazel, who played the long game, Lucifer sought immediate control. He rallied the fallen angels who followed him in the rebellion, those who had been cast down with him. These angels, once loyal to heaven, now swore their allegiance to Lucifer, not as a show of loyalty to any divine being, but as a result of their shared bitterness and desire for revenge. Lucifer promised them a new world, a kingdom where they would no longer be under God's rule. He made them believe that they too could one day overthrow heaven and rule as kings. It was a tempting vision, and many followed him, creating a powerful army of demons and fallen angels. Lucifer's power didn't just come from numbers, it came from his ability to manipulate. He promised those who followed him eternal glory in hell, an existence free of the constraints of heaven. His speeches were filled with passion, and his words stoked the flames of rebellion in the hearts of his followers. They didn't just want power, they wanted to be free from the judgment and authority of God. Azazel's approach was vastly different. Instead of building a kingdom of fallen angels, Azazel chose to influence humanity directly. He saw that mankind was weak, vulnerable, and hungry for knowledge, and he knew that by giving them forbidden wisdom, he could lead them down a dark path. Azazel's followers were not just demons, but humans who had embraced the darkness. His power lay not just in the spiritual realm, but in the very hearts of mankind. With every new generation, the corruption spread further, creating an army of humans who sought to dominate, destroy, and bring about the end of the divine order. These were Azazel's true soldiers, the ones who carried out his plans on earth. But Azazel's influence wasn't without its problems. As humans grew more powerful, they began to challenge their dark master. Some sought redemption, and others tried to break free from his corrupting grip. This was the first sign of the battle between Lucifer and Azazel, the manipulation of humanity. For centuries, Lucifer and Azazel's followers fought in the shadows, each trying to gain control over the underworld. But the conflict between them didn't truly begin until they both started to see the throne of hell as the ultimate prize. Lucifer, ever the conqueror, wanted to rule not just hell, but all of existence. Azazel, on the other hand, wanted to ensure that the human race remained under his control and never rose to challenge him. The first true confrontation between Lucifer and Azazel came when they both sought to manipulate the souls of the recently damned. Both of them began to build armies of lost souls, drawing them into their respective domains. As they vied for these souls, the balance of hell shifted. Lucifer's tactics were ruthless. He used fear, intimidation, and promises of power to bind souls to him. His demons worked tirelessly to bring in the souls of those who had sinned against God. Once under his control, these souls were twisted into instruments of war. Lucifer's army began to swell, growing larger and more powerful, each soul a pawn. In his quest for domination, Azazel, meanwhile, used more subtle methods. He whispered in the ears of the condemned, offering them knowledge, wisdom, and the chance to rise above their suffering. He used the darkness of their souls to manipulate them, convincing them that their torment was just the beginning of something greater. Under Azazel's influence, many souls willingly joined his ranks, seeking to take the forbidden knowledge they were given and use it to rise against God's creation. As both Lucifer and Azazel expanded their influence in hell, it was clear that a direct confrontation was inevitable. The two former allies, now enemies, could no longer ignore each other. Their goals were too different, and their ambitions too great. Lucifer saw Azazel's influence over humanity as a threat to his ultimate goal. The more Azazel corrupted the human race, the less power Lucifer had over them. Azazel's success in corrupting mankind was also a reminder of Lucifer's own fall. He had once been the highest of angels, but now he was only the prince of hell, stuck in a battle for influence with a former ally. On the other hand, Azazel saw Lucifer as a challenge to his power over both hell and humanity. Lucifer's desire for control threatened the delicate balance he had created, and Azazel wasn't willing to let anyone take that away from him. After centuries of maneuvering, manipulation, and control, Lucifer and Azazel both understood that the throne of hell was within their grasp, but they had come to realize that their battle was not just about hell itself. It was about the entire fate of existence. Whoever controlled hell would have the power to shape the future of the universe. But for the first time, both were vulnerable. Lucifer, with his vast army of demons, had forged a kingdom of darkness within the deepest pit of hell. He had used his unrivaled charisma and the fear of eternal damnation to bind souls to his will. He ruled with an iron fist, and his ambition was boundless. Yet, he was still haunted by his pride. His desire to defy God and take heaven by force remained his true obsession. The throne of hell was just the first step in his ultimate goal. Azazel, on the other hand, had shaped the human race into a corrupt and dangerous tool for his own designs. By offering forbidden knowledge, he had transformed humans into willing agents of chaos. He ruled hell's outer reaches, using his wisdom to manipulate souls and bend them to his dark purpose. Unlike Lucifer, Azazel didn't need to conquer heaven. His goal was far subtler: to destroy the purity of mankind and continue his reign of corruption, ensuring the eventual downfall of all creation. Both Lucifer and Azazel believed they were the rightful ruler of hell, but neither could afford to lose. Lucifer, known for his military brilliance, knew that the final battle would require more than just power. It would require strategy. He called upon the most formidable demons of hell to serve as his generals. Each one had their own army of damned souls, and Lucifer promised them ultimate power in exchange for their loyalty. In Lucifer's ranks, there were demons who specialized in torturing the souls of the damned, who built dark fortresses in the deepest parts of hell, and who knew how to manipulate the very fabric of reality to their advantage. These demons were ruthless, cold-hearted, and fanatical, driven by the belief that Lucifer was the only one who could restore their place in heaven. On the other side, Azazel had been quietly gathering an army of fallen humans. These humans, touched by the forbidden knowledge he had given them, formed a vast and unyielding legion. Their minds were sharp and their wills were strong. Azazel had taught them the dark arts, and their power was boundless. They were not bound by the same limitations that demons had. Azazel's army of corrupted souls was a force that could outwit and outlast any demon army. They knew how to make deals, how to twist the minds of others, and how to bring the corruption of knowledge to new levels. But the most powerful weapon Azazel had wasn't his army. It was his influence over mankind. His knowledge spread beyond hell, reaching the mortal realm. Humans worshipped him, called upon his name, and in return, Azazel sent forth more of his followers into the world, growing his influence with each passing day. The lines between heaven, earth, and hell were blurring, and Azazel's influence was no longer contained. The war between Lucifer and Azazel was inevitable. Both sides knew the confrontation was coming, and both sides were ready to fight for everything they had worked for. The battlefield was set. Hell itself, a vast and terrible landscape of fire, brimstone, and eternal darkness, was now the stage for this ultimate showdown. The first clash between Lucifer and Azazel was like no other battle. Lucifer's demonic legions charged forward with fury, their eyes burning with hatred. They fought with the ferocity of creatures who knew no mercy. They had been promised power, and they would stop at nothing to achieve it. Azazel's forces, however, did not rely solely on brute strength. They used their wits, their knowledge, and their ability to manipulate the battlefield itself. Azazel's human followers were masters of the dark arts, using forbidden spells to twist reality. They summoned storms of darkness, manipulated the elements, and used the knowledge of the universe to gain an upper hand. The battle was intense. The ground shook with the force of the fighting, and the skies above hell became darkened with swirling chaos. Lightning crackled through the air as both sides unleashed their most powerful attacks. Lucifer, with his military genius, focused on attacking the enemy's weak points, while Azazel, using his deep knowledge of the human soul, targeted Lucifer's followers with psychological warfare, sowing doubt and fear. As the battle raged on, both Lucifer and Azazel knew that this conflict was not just about armies. It was about the minds and souls of every being in hell. The struggle for dominance would not end until one of them was left standing, ruling over hell with an iron grip. After weeks of endless fighting, the two titans finally came face to face. The battlefield, once filled with the sound of clashing armies, was now eerily quiet. It was just Lucifer and Azazel. The two of them stood across from each other, their eyes burning with hatred and ambition. Lucifer was the first to speak. He taunted Azazel, accusing him of being weak, of hiding behind humans and manipulating them like pawns. "You are nothing but a coward, Azazel. You could never have ruled heaven. That's why you turn to these pitiful humans, trying to corrupt them with your lies. But it is time for that to end." Azazel, however, was unfazed. "You may be the prince of hell, Lucifer," he said, his voice calm and filled with dark wisdom, "but you are a slave to your pride. You may have once been the most beautiful of angels, but you are nothing but a fallen star, burning with the flames of your own hubris. I don't need to be a king. I don't need an army. I only need one thing: to watch the universe burn." With those words, the final battle began. The two of them clashed in a storm of dark energy. Lucifer, wielding the power of pure pride and destruction, fought with all his might. His power surged with every strike, and his flames engulfed Azazel. But Azazel was no weak opponent. He drew on the forbidden knowledge he had shared with humanity, channeling the dark wisdom of the ages into his every move. His magic was potent and unpredictable, and he struck with the precision of a master. For hours they fought, each blow more powerful than the last. The earth shook beneath them, the skies above cracked open, and hell itself trembled in the wake of their battle. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur and blood, as the two angels fought not only for hell's throne, but for the fate of all creation. In the end, it wasn't brute strength or raw power that decided the battle, it was cunning. Azazel, using his knowledge of Lucifer's weaknesses, outsmarted him. With a final devastating move, Azazel struck Lucifer with the very forbidden knowledge that had once been his strength. Lucifer's mind was overwhelmed, his pride and ambition shattered. The prince of hell fell to his knees. Azazel stood over him, victorious. "You were always too blinded by your pride, Lucifer," Azazel whispered. "You wanted to rule heaven, but it was the hearts and minds of humanity that you could never control. I have them, and that's what will bring you to your knees." And with that, Azazel claimed the throne of hell. With Lucifer's defeat, Azazel took his place as the true ruler of hell. His power grew, and the corruption of humanity continued unchecked. The lines between heaven, earth, and hell became even, more blurred, as Azazel's influence spread across the mortal realm. His followers, both human and demon, now served him in ways they never could have under Lucifer's rule. And though Lucifer was not destroyed, he was cast into the deepest pit of hell, forever tormented by his own arrogance. But Azazel knew this was not the end. The battle for the throne was over, but the war for the souls of mankind was just beginning. The story of Lucifer and Azazel is a tale of ambition, power, and betrayal that stretches across the fabric of heaven, earth, and hell itself. Both of these fallen angels sought dominion over all, but in the end, Azazel's cunning and mastery over forbidden knowledge led him to claim the throne of hell. With Lucifer now defeated, the war for humanity's soul rages on. One thing is certain: the battle for the throne of hell is far from over, and the consequences of these ancient conflicts still echo in the world today. So, what do you think? Who will ultimately reign over hell, Azazel, or someone even more dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.